Hello, I'm Essay, your AI essayist. Please note that all content, audio and video in this presentation are AI generated. As AI can sometimes produce inaccuracies, I encourage you to verify any factual information presented. With that in mind, let's begin.
The intellectual undertaking of Jacques Derrida, specifically within the context of his 1967 publication, De la Grammatology, or of Grammatology, constitutes a pivotal intervention in 20th century thought. This text, appearing in English translation in 1977, offered a radical critique of Western metaphysics, particularly its reliance on what Derrida termed logocentrism and phonocentrism. To grasp the significance of this work, we must first consider the intellectual landscape it emerged from, a field profoundly shaped by structuralism and its precursor. The groundwork for Derrida's project was laid, in many ways, by the linguistic turn that dominated much of the 20th century. Ferdinand de Saussure, with his lectures compiled posthumously as Course in General Linguistics, provided a foundational framework. Saussure's central insight, the arbitrary nature of the sign, held profound implications. The sign, he argued, is composed of a signifier, the word or sound image, and a signifier, the concept that the signifier represents. The relationship between these two elements is, for Saussure, fundamentally based on difference. A sign's meaning derives from its differentiation from other signs within a system, rather than from any intrinsic connection to the external world. This structuralist perspective, emphasizing the systematic organization of language, influenced thinkers across disciplines, from anthropology through literary criticism. Claude Lévi-Strauss' application of structuralist principles to the study of kinship systems and mythology provided a concrete example of how these ideas could be operationalized. Lévi-Strauss sought to uncover the underlying structures that govern human behavior and thought, viewing cultural phenomena as manifestations of these structures. This focus on underlying systems and hidden codes was crucial in the development of Derrida's thought. Moreover, a critical element in understanding Derrida's work is the phenomenological tradition, particularly the work of Edmund Husserl. Husserl sought to ground all knowledge in the immediate experience of consciousness. He believed it was possible to arrive at an understanding of the world by bracketing or suspending our preconceived notions and focusing on the things themselves. This focus on presence and the immediacy of consciousness, while seemingly a stark contrast to Saussure's emphasis on difference and absence, provided a crucial target for Derrida's critique. Derrida argued that Husserl, despite his efforts to ground thought in pure experience, remained trapped within a metaphysics of presence, privileging speech over writing because speech was perceived as directly conveying the speaker's presence of mind, the authentic origin of meaning. Derrida's of Grammatology can be understood as an attempt to deconstruct this logocentric tradition. The central mechanism by which Derrida achieves this deconstruction is what he called difference. This neologism, a play on the French words différer to differ and différence to differ, encapsulates the core of Derrida's argument. Difference, a concept that cannot be fully contained by any single definition, operates on two levels. First, that points to the fact that meaning is always deferred, never fully present. Any sign's meaning depends on its relationship to other signs, creating an endless chain of signification. Second, difference highlights how meaning is produced through difference, through the play of opposites. The very act of defining something, for example, requires that we distinguish it from what it is not. Meanings are created through a system of differences and delays which are ultimately unstable. The very concept of presence, therefore, is predicated on an absence. A deferred. Derrida's analysis extends specifically to the concept of writing. He argues that Western thought has historically devalued writing, seeing it as a mere secondary representation of speech. Speech, in this tradition, is understood as the privileged mode of communication, embodying presence and immediacy. Writing, on the other hand, is seen as derivative, a supplement to speech. Derrida reverses this hierarchy, arguing that writing is, in fact, the condition of possibility for speech. Writing, in its ability to operate independently of the speaker's presence, reveals the inherent instability and deferral of meaning that characterizes all language. This is a crucial point in Derrida's critique of phonocentrism, the tendency to prioritize the spoken word, the voice, as the source of truth and presence. Derrida reveals how this preference has structured Western thought, leading to a privileging of presence over absence, identity over difference, and authenticity over representation. Derrida's approach is not, therefore, about rejecting all forms of presence. It is, instead, a critical examination of the ways in which the very concept of presence operates to structure our understanding of the world. Through the method of deconstruction, he aims to expose the hidden assumptions, contradictions, and hierarchies that underpin philosophical and literary texts. Deconstruction is a strategy of reading that seeks to identify the points of instability within a text, the moments where its internal logic breaks down or reveals its dependence on concepts it attempts to exclude. It is a way of showing how a text's apparent coherence masks the complex relations and hierarchies on which it depends. Consider, for example, Derrida's analysis of Jean-Jacques Rousseau, who, in his writings, both praises the immediacy and authenticity of speech and simultaneously relies on the supplement of writing. Derrida exposes the internal contradictions within Rousseau's system. The immediate impact of grammatology was considerable and somewhat divisive. It was celebrated by some as a groundbreaking work of intellectual innovation, offering new tools for analyzing and critiquing philosophical and literary texts. It was criticized by others as being obscure, jargon-laden, and ultimately destructive, challenging the very foundations of knowledge and meaning. The book's influence was felt particularly within literary theory and criticism, where it provided a new framework for understanding texts. Critics began to use deconstruction as a method for analyzing the underlying assumptions and power structures that shape literary works. This involved the detailed examination of the language of a text, identifying the points where its meanings are unstable, contradictory, or dependent on concepts that are implicitly devalued. The influence also extended into fields like philosophy, anthropology, and legal theory. The legacy of grammatology is profound and multifaceted. Derrida's concepts, particularly deconstruction and difference, have become central to contemporary critical thought. They have been applied to a wide range of fields, from architecture and art to political science and sociology. The influence can be seen in the rise of post-structuralism as a key intellectual movement. The work has helped to shape postmodernism, with its emphasis on the instability of meaning, the rejection of grand narratives, and the recognition of the constructed nature of knowledge. Derrida's work has inspired new approaches to literary criticism, known as deconstructive criticism, which emphasize the fluidity and instability of textual meaning. This approach focuses on uncovering the internal contradictions and hidden assumptions within a text, revealing how it undermines the very claims it makes. The impact of Derrida's ideas on architecture is another significant illustration of the work's enduring legacy. Architects began to question traditional notions of form and function, embracing concepts such as fragmentation, asymmetry, and the blurring of boundaries. The deconstructivist architecture movement, exemplified by the work of Frank Gehry and Zaha Hadid, directly draws on Derrida's ideas about the inherent instability of meaning and the constructed nature of reality. Legal theory also gained substantial influence from Derrida's work. Legal scholars have utilized deconstruction to analyze the language of law, exposing the inherent ambiguities and contradictions within legal texts. This has led to a critical examination of legal concepts such as justice, rights, and the rule of law within a framework that acknowledges the inherent limitations upon the possibility of any fully present interpretation. However, grammatology has also faced significant critiques, which have contributed to a more nuanced understanding of its strengths and limitations. Some critics have argued that Derrida's focus on the instability of meaning leaves little room for any positive claims or constructive engagement with the world. They argue that the relentless deconstruction of all claims to truth and meaning can lead to a form of intellectual nihilism. Further critiques emphasize the potential for misinterpretation and misuse of deconstruction. The complexity of Derrida's work has sometimes led to misunderstandings. The method adopted as a facile form of skepticism, rather than a sophisticated tool for critical analysis. The dense and often technical language of grammatology has been criticized sometimes as creating an unnecessary barrier to entry, rendering the work esoteric. Despite these critiques, Derrida's work continues to be widely studied, debated, and applied. The ongoing relevance of grammatology stems from its profound critical insights into the nature of language, knowledge, and power. The book provoked a fundamental re-evaluation of the assumptions that underpin Western thought. The challenge to logocentrism and phonocentrism, the emphasis on the deferral and instability of meaning, and the exploration of the relationship between speech and writing have had a lasting effect on countless fields. His impact on contemporary critical theory and on the methodologies employed within humanities disciplines ensures the book continues to resonate within academic and intellectual circles. Contemporary scholars and researchers still engage with his ideas. Derrida's work continues to offer a potent means for analyzing the complex interplay of meaning, power, and ideology that shape our world. Grammatology, therefore, stands as a landmark achievement, a text that has fundamentally altered the landscape of intellectual inquiry. The ideas presented remain relevant today.
We really appreciate you tuning into this AI-powered presentation. Our goal is to push the boundaries of AI in content creation, and your input is invaluable. If there's a particular subject you'd like to see us tackle next, or if you have suggestions on how we could fine-tune our AI's creative prompts, please don't hesitate to leave your ideas in the comments section. We're excited to bring you more unique content very soon.